Two-thirds of young men today say the exact same thing. No one really knows me. Not I don't have friends. Not I'm alone. They have people around them. Coworkers, gym buddies, guys in the group chat, but somehow none of them actually know them. And that gap? That's the real story here. Here's a number that should stop you cold. In 1990, more than half of American men said they had at least 6 close friends. Today, that number has been cut in half. And it's not just fewer friends. It's something researchers now call the friendship recession. 1 in 5 men in the US say they have 0 close friends. Not enough. 0. And here's the part that makes this actually dangerous, not just sad. Researchers have found that chronic loneliness carries health risks comparable to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Your body doesn't know the difference between social isolation and physical danger. It treats both the same way. So the question isn't really, why don't men have friends? Men have plenty of people around them. The real question is why so many men have built entire social lives without a single person who actually knows what's going on inside their head. In the next 10 minutes, we're going to break down the actual psychology behind this. Not the surface level excuses, but what's really happening underneath. And then we're going to talk about what actually fixes it, because most of the advice out there doesn't. Let's start with something psychologists have known for a while, but rarely explain well. Men and women don't build friendships the same way. Women's friendships tend to be built around emotional connection, talking, checking in, sharing what's actually going on. Men's friendships, they're mostly built around doing something together. Sports, gaming, work. A shared activity is the glue, and that's not automatically a bad thing. But here's the problem. When the activity disappears, the friendship usually disappears with it. You change jobs, you stop playing on that team, you move cities, and suddenly the guy you called your close friend for 5 years just fades out. No conflict, no falling out, just silence. There's actually a study that captured this perfectly. Researchers asked middle-aged men to name their closest friends. Then they tried to contact those friends for the study. In some cases, the friend had already passed away, and the man calling them his very close friend had no idea. That's not a coincidence. That's a pattern. Male friendships often run wide, but shallow. And when they're not maintained through constant contact, they quietly erode, even while the guy still believes the friendship is solid. So where does this start? It's not something that begins at 30, it starts in adolescence. And this is the part almost nobody talks about. Picture a teenage boy, maybe 14, 15 years old. He's going through something, grief, anxiety, whatever it is, and for a moment he lets it show in front of a friend. There's an actual account from a research study that captures this almost perfectly. A 17-year-old boy said that after he opened up about how depressed he'd been feeling, his own friend responded by calling him a depressed little bitch. And in his own words, that one moment taught him to just hide how he was feeling from then on. That's the mechanism right there. It's not that boys don't want emotional closeness. Developmental psychologists who've studied this for years have actually found the opposite. Boys crave intimacy just as much as girls do at that age. But somewhere around early to mid-adolescence, there's this quiet, constant policing that kicks in. Show too much emotion, and you risk being called soft, weak, or worse. So what happens? Boys learn to keep the friendship, but drop the vulnerability. They keep showing up, same group, same jokes, same activities, but the emotional core gets buried. And here's the part that really matters. An emotional muscle you stop using doesn't just sit there waiting. It atrophies. By the time these boys become men, many of them have genuinely lost the habit of opening up, not just the willingness. That's why so many grown men can sit next to a friend for 10 years and never once say, "I've been struggling." Now let's bring this into the present. Because this isn't just a teenage boy problem anymore. Modern life has made it so much easier for grown men to never fix it. Think about what used to force men together. Religious groups, community organizations, local clubs, even just working the same physical office day after day. These were built-in structures that pushed men into regular contact with each other, whether they consciously sought it out or not. A lot of that has quietly disappeared. Fewer men are involved in community or religious groups than a generation ago. Remote work means a lot of guys don't even have coworkers to grab lunch with anymore. Add in longer commutes, more geographic moves for jobs, later marriage, and the natural opportunities for friendship just keep shrinking. And then there's the digital piece, which is almost a trap in disguise. Technology promised to connect us more than ever, and in some ways, it does. You can text a friend across the country in 2 seconds. But researchers studying this have pointed out something important. Digital communication is shallow by design. It's fast, it's constant, but it rarely creates the depth or presence that real friendship actually needs. You can be in a group chat with 15 guys and still feel like not one of them actually knows you. So you end up with this strange, modern contradiction. More connection than any generation in history, and yet men reporting less real support than ever. Researchers actually have a number for this. Men are about 50% less likely than women to say they have someone who checks in on them regularly. More contact, less closeness. That's the trade modern life quietly made, and most men never noticed it happening. Okay, so here's the part that actually matters. What do you do with all of this? First thing, stop waiting for emotional connection to just happen. Remember what we said earlier, male friendships form around shared activity, not conversation. So use that. Don't try to force a deep, vulnerable talk out of nowhere. Instead, build consistency around something specific. A weekly workout, a standing Sunday call, a regular game night. The structure comes first. The depth grows inside it over time, almost without you trying. Second, and this is the one most men skip, someone has to go first. Vulnerability doesn't just appear in a friendship. Someone has to risk it. And usually, if you're the one who says, "Honestly, this has been a rough week," first, it gives the other guy permission to do the same. Most men are just as starved for that kind of honesty as you are. They're just also waiting for someone else to break the ice. Third, treat friendship like something that needs maintenance, not something that just survives on its own. Remember that study, the guy who didn't know his close friend had died? That happens because men assume closeness sticks around by default. It doesn't. A text every few weeks, actually showing up when someone needs something. These small, boring acts of maintenance are what keep a friendship alive, long after the shared activity that started it is gone. And last, if you grew up learning to hide what you felt, know that unlearning that takes practice, not willpower. Start small. You don't need to have a breakdown in front of your friends to build real closeness. You just need to say one honest sentence you'd normally swallow, then another one next week. That's genuinely how the emotional muscle rebuilds. Because at the end of the day, loneliness isn't really about how many people are around you. It's about how many of them actually know what's going on inside you. And that number, that's the one thing you actually have control over.